Hello. What you see here is my newly designed web page, and it includes a list of some of my art galleries made using ArtRage. Each one is fronted by a little avatar of me, as you can see. And what I want to do is I don't want a duplicate of my avatar on the front page 6 times. I want to spell out a word, and therefore each avatar will have a letter transposed on top of it. And I think the tool of choice is going to be ArtRage, of course. As you can see, each avatar changes into a separate gallery, and then my artwork is iterated through. And this is going to show you the steps that I took using ArtRage to create a word on my front page. First things first, let's create a new painting. And I know the dimensions because I worked them out. It's 1800 by 400. And the first thing to do is to import my avatar. Have it readily available and transform it. Oh, it seems to be in perspective transform. I don't really want that. Just normal transform to scale it down uniformly and then move it into position. As you can see, I have a bit of an issue already in the fact that I want to snap it right into the corner and to be positioned on an equal sixth. But that I will sort out later on. Just now duplicating layers and moving each one in using the transform tool. Just roughly putting each avatar in position. This is sped up a bit because you can probably imagine it's just the same thing over and over again. Now I need to try and figure out how to align these. And of course, the tool of choice is going to be the grid. This hash up in the toolbar activates the grid. And as you can see, nothing is selected at the moment. So I don't see a grid and the grid is not snapped to, but I've enabled those two. Pixels is not something I want. I want something as squares because I can easily define them into sixths there. As you can see, squares across is 6. Squares down, the minimum is 4, so I'll have to leave it at that, but that's perfectly adequate. I want to increase the opacity up to maximum value, which enables the lines to be seen more clearly, which will help. And the snap distance is quite significant, so that's absolutely fine. Now I'm going into transform and moving things around in standard transform. Not quite working at the moment. It's snapping, but not quite the way I want to. I want really the whole image to snap to the corners. So therefore I'm going to switch to the perspective transform and grab the corners and drag them. As you can see, it snaps very nicely to the sixths. And now I can do the same thing for all the other ones as well. So the snap is really useful. That's why the snap is quite high. I could set it to virtually anything and it would just snap very nicely. And here the corners are so close to the edges that actually I'm not even dragging to the corners. I'm just selecting them and then they automatically go and snap to the corners. So as you can see, my first step was to roughly position them, and now they're fairly close. I can just click on the corners, and again I've sped it up. So that didn't take too long. I was quite happy with that. Now I think I want to just turn the grid off and just have a look at it to see if it looks okay. I think there may be some lines. As you can see, there's a bit of a line in between some of them. So what I want to do is that bottom layer on the left, you can see, I want to fill that in black. It probably won't make much difference. Nobody will really notice it when I come to chop them up at the end, but I might as well do this now. As you can see, I'm using the fill tool set to black and just changing it to a flood fill. So that's a basic fill, making sure that everything is selected properly. And there we go. Doesn't really look as if anything's happened because I'm zoomed out quite a lot, but zoomed in, I think the line's gone away. But as I said, not really too bothered about that. It may look a bit nicer though. Now I've done all of that, I will now merge all the layers in. As you can see, there's a single command for that, which will make my life a bit easier because I've positioned them in the right places now, so I can merge them all down. Now I am importing the text that I'm going to overlay. As you can see, there is no transparent background at the moment. It's just a white background, but I can deal with that in a minute. And as you can see, the characters are unequally spaced, which may cause me a few issues because I want to align each letter over each avatar. I'm now starting to think about how I'm going to move these letters around. It may not be that easy because fonts are a bit of a pain in the arse. Seeing what might look quite nice, I'm trying some blend modes because sometimes you can get some interesting effects. I don't think I really want to go for this. I think what I want to do is I want to make the background transparent, and that will just leave the letters, and the letters will then have to be realigned, one letter correctly aligned over each avatar. As you can see with those blend modes, when I was overlaying, they're not aligned particularly well. So filter and the remove matte color automatically removes, as you can see by default, the matte color there is white, which is exactly what I had, and it preserves black. All I wanted was something very simple. I imported the font to a very simple black and white image, which makes life a lot easier. And as you can see, toggling off the bottom layer, you can see that it's overlaid quite nicely. Of course, I want these letters to stand out a bit more. The next thing to do is to fill them up, and therefore I think I'll choose a red, as you can see on the right hand side, and I want to fill in those words just to bring them out a bit. Just thinking what I need to do. Let's try flood fill first of all and see what happens. Oh, I selected the wrong layer as always, the bottom layer, but you can undo that. It was almost quite an interesting effect. Let's select the font layer and try it again. I'm having issues here. I suspect this is to do with when the matte took the white out. There's some level of transparency left over, so the fill won't work, but I can use a border fill. So here I am selecting what color I want to fill to. And of course it's going to be black because I want to fill out to the outlines, which are defined in black. So that's all set up now. And therefore, in theory, now if I select it, it should fill out just to the black border. There we go. Very nice. Let's do it for the other L as well. As you can see there, it's very pronounced on how they're not aligned properly. Now that fill looks a bit weird. I think there's a bit of transparency still, so I double filled that one to get the bright red to come out. That's fine, I'm not too bothered about that. That's probably just the way the matte came out of the background. And now it will just be a case of doing all the other letters, but I can see that's kind of looking all right. The red comes out very nicely, and also the shadow of each letter is giving the illusion of depth. So I've just filled in the exclamation mark, but I want to play around here a bit, I think. I know that the latest version of ArtRage had this the slow motion on the fill, and I want to see how that works. So I'm increasing the fill, so it should draw slowly. As you can see, it does, although the ArtRage is busy as covering it up a bit. I think I want to move that one out a bit. I want to move it and just to have a closer look. It's quite a cool feature. It will look a lot cooler on things like mazes and things like that, I suspect. But let's try it again. I've made it a bit slower. We can see exactly what the algorithm is doing. It's quite cool. Anyway, that's just a demonstration of one of the new features that was added to ArtRage recently. Set the slow motion back to normal again, so it'll do it pretty much instantly. And there we go, that's not looking too bad. Now, of course, I've got to try and deal with the alignment of those individual letters. And I think the only way I can do this, I think the normal transform isn't really going to work because they're a specific font and they're letters. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the grid lines to align everything up and do things by eye to a certain extent. I think this is the only way I'm going to go. So here we go with the guide section. I'm going to snap to, I thought about snapping to guides, but I don't think I really want to do that. I just want the guide to be a guide at the moment. Drag down from the top. And that guide there will define roughly the bottom of the characters, which helps me define it by eye then. The vertical will be using this guideline, and the horizontal I'll just do it by eye, but it shouldn't be too difficult because I've got a reference which is my avatar and it's pretty symmetrical, so I should be able to work this one out fairly well. Selecting the layer with the H on it and transforming, and now I can drag it around, and I have no snap enabled, but I have the guideline there, and therefore the bottom of the letter I can see that it's correctly vertically aligned, and now I'm just horizontally aligning and just doing it by eye, which is fine really. As I said, the normal transform would be really difficult to do, I suspect, but this is okay. That looks all right. And now for the next layer, which is the E, moving it around as well, centering it. That looks pretty decent. Not as difficult as I thought it would be, this. And now going through all the other layers. I'll sped this up a bit. Not too bad. That looks all right from my eye, I think. And now I think they're not quite aligned the way I want them to align, but now I think I will merge them all into a single layer and then I can move them all in one go. I think that's the thing that I will certainly do next. Now merging down from the top level into a single layer. And also what I want to do, I think, is I want to create some groups as well. I don't really want to merge it all down into a single layer and then start changing it on that without any kind of copy of the individual font and also the background. I want to split those two. As you can see, I've got two layers there with a split, and I want to group those two together and then duplicate. That's the plan with this. As you can see, now I've moved everything into one layer. I can move it all in one go, and I'm just moving it up because I thought it looked a bit low. It's the beauty of layers. It's pretty easy to do. And now I thought I would want the font to come forward and to stand out a bit more. I had an idea I might want to blur the bottom layer. The hello does stand out a lot, but I think I want the avatar to come through much cleaner. Not sure if this is really going to work too much, but it's interesting to give it a go. I think what I want to do is I want to play around with some of the colours though. Let's try and adjust the background colours. Bit of trial and error. Turn the contrast down. Will push the background into the back and play around with some colours, because I think the colours need to be a bit more saturated. I think that's my idea. And playing around with these parameters and getting something that might look fairly decent. Bit of trial and error going on here. I think that looks okay. The background is pushed to the back and I'm just seeing the difference between the two things, and yeah, I think that looks alright. That's what I want, I think, from this. But I think I do want to push. I think the colour of the font is not quite right. Again, I'm going to change the colours, but it's going to be for the layer above the background. I want something lighter to stand out. And again, a bit of trial and error. That looks quite nice already, I think. I think I want it to be yellow. Not too saturated necessarily. It's nice to be able to trial and error this. And again, one between the other. I think I'm happy with that. So I think I'm fairly happy with the overall design. What I need to think about now is to chop it up and export it. I've now created a group and I'm going to group these two layers together. And then I'm going to duplicate this group, because what I want to do is to merge a single group and then start chopping it up. But I want a backup of a split of the two layers that I've created, just in case. That bottom group is going to be my backup, and this one I'm going to merge now. And I'm going to make invisible the bottom one. Now focus on this single, and using the snap as before, I can now highlight and drag the selection to the first sixth and export the layer. And when you have a selection and you export a layer, it will only export that selection. As you can see here in Windows Explorer, I have got the H. I've managed to extract that one out very nicely. Should be a simple case now to do all the other letters. It's just a case of dragging the selection around each letter and then exporting each one. It's quite a nice feature of ArtRage just to be able to export the selection from a layer. Just need to think about some kind of naming convention to export each image, and each of these images will be imported onto my website. As you can see, the hello is starting to build up there. I've got the HE going, and it's just a case of doing all the other ones now. This has turned out to be a bit easier than I thought. There you go, HEL. And now sped up for all the other ones. Just straightforward export. There we go, a hello. And if I open the first image file, I can just cycle through all the letters. As you can see, they're cycling between the L's. There's a slight offset, but not much. It's fine, I'm not too bothered about that. And then this is what it looks like when I import it into my web page. There we go, hello. It works. It looks more interesting than it did before. So there we go, that's my tutorial for using ArtRage to add extra interest to my new web page, and obviously can be applied to anything that I wanted. If there was an icon that I wanted to create or something that I needed to modify, then I could do that as well quite easily. Okay, thank you very much.